I was born on a beautiful spring day, and my parents were so proud. Look how sweet I am. Anyway, let's get down to business. If you want me and my sisters to produce as much milk as possible and still stay healthy and happy, I can give you a few pointers. Number 1, I am not a machine. I'm flesh and blood just like you, and I have feelings too. Number 2, both you and I benefit from milking out as much as possible from my udder every time I'm milked. The way to do this is to make me feel like you're my calf. Calves are experts at getting milk from their mothers. How do they do it? They start out by gently butting my teats and my udder, which triggers nerve signals that travel up to my brain. This takes a while, and it has nothing to do with intelligence. It's all about hormones.
The alveolar area is located in the upper portion of the udder, and this is where milk is produced. Manipulation of the teats and the udder produce nerve signals that are transmitted to the pituitary gland in the brain, stimulating the production of the hormone oxytocin. The hormone is transported via the blood system, and it causes the let-down reflex, when the smooth muscle tissue encasing the lactation alveoli contracts, and the milk is pressed down to the udder and the teats. Sofia Svensson works at the Agricultural High School in Stora Segerstad. She and Rosa will demonstrate the right techniques. First, clean the udder and the teats with a clean, lukewarm cloth. While you're doing this, inspect the teats for any signs of damage and make sure they're clean. The time spent cleaning the teat is called teat contact time, and it should last at least 15 seconds. It should be like a calf suckling its mother. The next step is to inspect the milk. Pre-milk 3 or 4 squirts from each teat into a special strip cup. This process also removes bacteria and spores from the teat openings. In addition to the time spent on cleanup and this first expulsion, the cow needs a bit more time for the let-down reflex to activate lactation. The time elapsing between the first teat contact and the fitting of the cluster should be at least 1 minute. Cows that have calved more than 6 months previously yield less milk and require more stimulation than cows that have calved more recently. This also applies when cows are milked 3 times a day. The teat contact time must be increased to at least 20 seconds in order to produce sufficient oxytocin levels. If the oxytocin level is too low, much of the milk will remain in the alveoli. The pulsating movement of the cluster imitates the suckling of a calf and continues to stimulate the flow of oxytocin during the entire milking process. After milking, the teats can be either dipped or sprayed with a disinfectant and softening solution. During the summer season, an application of sunscreen may be required. If cows are milked at regular intervals, and you allow at least a minute for stimulation before attaching the cluster, they'll produce 5% more milk than when the teat preparation process is of shorter duration, and when the milking process itself differs from time to time. So, if you're conscientious and stick to the same routines, and make sure that you wait at least a minute between cleaning the udder and attaching the cluster, your cows will be healthier and your profits will increase. Here's an example of what might happen if you attach the cluster too soon after cleaning and stripping. Little or no milk will be expelled for the first minute. This is called machine stripping, and it can cause damage to the tips of the teats. Now, a full minute after the initial teat contact, the milk starts flowing.
The udder is not like a faucet that you just turn on. It takes skill. People who try to milk you without understanding this principle, and I've met a few, can damage your teats, spread bacteria, and cause mastitis. So I'll run through it all again. When you clean the teats, hold them firmly and gently nudge the udder. Pre-milk each teat and wait at least a minute before attaching the cluster. Calm atmosphere is important, and it's nice when you talk to us. The language doesn't matter as long as you sound friendly. And by the way, we're capable of walking all by ourselves.
Some bacteria that cause inflammation of the udder are cow-specific, and they mainly spread during the milking process. Others are tied to the environment and are generally spread in the intervals between milking. Cow-specific infections are kept in check by milking the healthy cows before milking any cows that are known to be infected. The same cluster is used for several cows in succession. Environmental contagions are kept in check mainly by ensuring clean and dry indoor conditions, and by providing the stock with top-quality food and water. Bacteria thrive in moist environments. That's why any surfaces that could pass on an infection should be allowed to dry between milking sessions. Make sure that all the milking facilities and parlours are carefully cleaned and are allowed to dry between sessions. Gloves are easy to keep clean, and they protect your hands from chafing. Soft, supple skin is like a soft, supple teat. It's easier to keep clean, and thus less likely to spread infection during milking. The udder must be clean, so it's advisable to trim or shave off excess hair. Less manure will collect on a well-trimmed udder. If you don't pre-milk into a cup, milk from infected cows might splash onto udders and hooves. Use a strip cup. It also helps you see any changes in the appearance of the milk. Take it easy with the hose when you clean away any residue of manure or milk. Manure and milk might splash up on the udder. The same thing applies if you use running water to clean the udder prior to milking. Too much water increases the risk of infection being spread. Launder the cloths at a location close to the milking station. Lukewarm cloths provide superior stimulation and cleaning properties. Once a month, a milk sample is taken from every cow. This is called cow inspection, and it's a way to see how much milk each cow produces, and to analyze the milk's content of fat and protein and the somatic cell count. The milk is sent in refrigerated vehicles to a laboratory for analysis. The results are sent to the dairy farmer. They provide guidelines for the feed management of individual cows and make it easy to monitor any changes in udder health. If you suspect that the milk has changed in character during the pre-milking process, you can check it with a paddle. The color and the consistency of the milk in the paddle compartments tell Hans that the right frontal teat is affected, and that milk from this teat shouldn't be mixed in with the rest of the milk. It doesn't matter if you decide to just milk out the single teat, or if the vet starts the cow on a course of antibiotics. The cow must be marked. By placing, for example, red bands on her hind legs, you can indicate that the cow is being treated with antibiotics and that her milk should not be added to the tank. If you choose to exclude teats due to changes in the milk, You can use yellow leg bands to indicate that the cow has only 2 or 3 functional teats. If possible, place the band on the leg that corresponds to the side with the teat in question. If there's any flocculation, or if the somatic cell count is high in a paddle test or during cow inspection, samples can be taken from each individual teat, which are then sent to a laboratory for a bacterial analysis. The lab will send the results, describing the type of bacteria.
Herringbone, robotic. It makes you wonder what's going on. When I was little, my mother was one of 20 cows. Everyone knew how Bengt was doing. Bengt was the farmer. But then Bengt increased his herd and bought a rotary, which meant a lot of new friends for us. New technology is interesting, you know. Once, when I went into the rotary, I stumbled and I fell.
The object is to use the system you have in the best possible way in order to maximize your milk production. Regardless of the system you use, all cows need to be prepared in the same way for milking. That means that the basic techniques are the same, no matter what system you use. Clean the udder and teats, pre-milk, and then wait at least a minute before you attach the cluster. Johan Mattsson at Vattenstad near Gimo milks 70 cows in a tandem parlour with 2 times 4 boxes. His father generally gives him a hand, but he can easily manage it on his own. Johan cleans, prepares, and attaches the cluster to 1 cow at a time in the tandem parlour. Sture Philipson lives in Frøvik near Mullsjö. He milks his herd of 80 in a herringbone parlour with 2 times 8 stalls. Compared to the tandem parlour, the difference here is that 3 or 4 cows are prepared at the same time. This is a manageable number of cows to stimulate, and the cows have at least a minute from the first teat contact until it's time to attach the cluster. Hans Samuelson has 200 cows on his dairy farm Karlset, and he uses a parallel parlour with 2 times 10 stalls. Here too, he prepares 3 to 4 cows at a time. Vapner Farm near Halmstad has 1,000 cows. The cows are milked in a 60-stall rotary parlour by Remantas, Christina and Egle. The rotary rotates the cows. Egle stands on the first platform and prepares the cows. She cleans the teats and checks the milk. Remantas attaches the cluster at another platform. The distance between Egle and Remantas has to be just right, and the rotary has to be set at the right speed to ensure that the time between stimulation and attaching the cluster is at least a minute. Bisse, Emma and Petra work at the Viken Research Farm near Falköping. Here, 400 cows are milked in a rotary herringbone parlour. The rotary allows the person performing milking to remain in the same place and perform all the different procedures, but that would not allow enough time to pass between preparation and attaching the cluster. Emma is doing the milking here on her own. She prepares 3 cows at a time, then goes back and attaches the cluster.
There's nothing new about most of this. The ancient Egyptians knew that cows needed stimulation to produce the maximum amount of milk.
The comfort and health of the cows is not the only aspect. Whoever does the milking needs to be comfortable too. The milking procedure is very repetitive. Back and neck problems are common. You need to have toned muscles to be able to do this job for years. When it comes to ergonomics, it's beneficial to be able to raise and lower your standing level. Arm strength is at its utmost, and the least strain is exerted on your arms and neck when your elbow works at a right angle, 90 degrees. Set the height that suits you best, measured from your elbow to the floor. Subtract 30 centimeters from that measurement and you'll have the ideal height from the floor to the cow platform. Keep your arms close to your body while you clean the udder. The more you have to stretch, the more you strain your shoulders, back and neck. Try to switch hands during the cleaning and stimulation phase. Keep your wrist as straight as possible when you pick up the cluster. Take turns using your right and left hands when you attach the cluster. There are several accessories available that make milking easier. In addition to an adjustable floor platform, Yuan has installed a service arm that helps him hold the cluster level. Thanks to the arm, he doesn't have to support the full weight of the cluster, thereby reducing the strain on his shoulders and arms. Other good accessories are gates that press the cow closer to the person milking them. Then you don't have to overstretch. Here, each worker stands on an adjustable platform. Egler is 20 centimeters shorter than Rimantas, which means that they should adjust their platforms to different levels to work comfortably. Some cows have udders that hang lower than your ideal working height. If this is the case, bend your knees, not your back. You need to find a working method that suits you. Hans likes to use his left hand more when he works on the left-hand side of the parlour, and his right hand on the right-hand side. He also uses a gate that presses the cow in closer to avoid overstretching. Egler, Christina and Rimantas trade places a few times during the approximately 3 hours it takes to do the milking. Switching tasks helps oxygenate muscles better and reduces wear and tear. Maintaining the right posture at work is just as important as working out. Workouts that exercise several different groups of muscles, like skiing, swimming and aerobics, are a great way to stay strong enough to avoid muscle strain. Discussing the herd's udder health status at regular intervals, along with the udder health of individual cows with a veterinarian, or discussing milking routines and technology with a quality advisor will benefit both the cows and you. A milking time test will show the interaction between the milker, the cow, and the equipment. The advisor attaches a vacuum logger to the cluster and documents the milking procedure, consisting of cleaning, pre-milking, and the time elapsed before the cluster is attached. If you aren't careful about the way you attach the cluster, air might get into the system. This might cause substantial vacuum fluctuations that force the milk back into the teat. Undesirable bacteria might establish themselves on the teat. To avoid this, listen to the sounds of the machine, the air escaping. Adjust the hoses and the machinery to minimize unnecessary vacuum fluctuations at the tips of the teats. Incomplete and overly brief pre-stimulation will almost always result in a period of unproductive milking, which harms the tips of the teats. This is what a damaged teat looks like, and this is what a healthy teat looks like. After the study is concluded, the vet and the advisor can suggest changes in procedures for work, udder cleaning, stimulation, or removal level. The objective is to maintain health and prevent illness.
Well, that's it. Now I won't have to worry about my sisters and myself anymore, because now you know the best way to milk a cow. It's time for a summary.
Clean the udder and teats with a lukewarm cloth. At the same time, make sure the teats are clean and show no signs of damage. The procedure should take at least 15 seconds in order to resemble a calf suckling its mother. The next step is to inspect the milk. Expel 3 or 4 squirts from each teat into a special strip cup. This process also removes bacteria and spores from the teat openings. In addition to the time spent on cleanup and this first expulsion, the cow needs a bit more time for the let-down reflex to activate lactation. The time elapsing between the first teat contact and attaching the cluster should be at least 1 minute. Lots of bacteria and spores are present in the barn, on teats, and on your hands. Keep your hands and work clothes clean, and use gloves. They reduce the risk of spreading infection during milking. Remember to always milk healthy cows first, before moving on to cows with infections. Make sure the barn is clean and dry, and that the animals are getting top quality food and water. And make sure that all the milking facilities and parlours are carefully cleaned and are allowed to dry between sessions. Milking is very repetitive, and this can put strain on your body. When it comes to ergonomics, it's beneficial to be able to raise and lower your standing level. Arm strength is at its utmost, and the least strain is exerted on your arms and neck when your elbow works at a right angle, 90 degrees. Try to switch hands during the cleaning and stimulation phase. We hope this film has given you a better understanding of how cows want to be treated and milked. We also hope you've received a better understanding of the connection between healthy, happy cows and increased profits in dairy production.